Hello, everybody, and you are very welcome. I'm Orna Ross here today for the Alliance of Independent Authors, those speaking to you from home. I am connected by the magic of the internet to Mr. Darren Hardy from Kindle Direct Publishing, UK manager. Hi, Darren, welcome.
Hi, Orna. Hi, Orna. It's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
It's great to have you back, and it's always good to speak to KDP at any time. But I think particularly at this time, there has been so much going on over on your side, and there always is, as I know you're always in a process of constantly upgrading and bringing in new features for authors. And that has ripples right through the network, and we have lots of questions from our members and followers for you today about various things that have been happening. So yeah, can we start there? Can you talk to me about maybe the top three big things that have been happening at KDP that authors should be aware of, say since we spoke last time about 18 months ago or so?
Yeah, sure. So obviously it's the summer, so authors are thinking about summer reading and probably thinking ahead to Q4 and Christmas and the opportunities that season brings. And one of the key things that we've been working on over recent months is print services within Kindle Direct Publishing. So obviously Kindle Direct Publishing automatically suggests to people ebooks, but we've been working very hard to add print services into KDP. And so over the last few months, you can now publish your books in print through Kindle Direct Publishing. And just recently, we've added some additional features. So, for example, an author looking to print a proof copy or some of their own author copies to potentially sell themselves can do that through KDP, and they are shipped locally. So rather than in the past through our other services like CreateSpace having to wait and pay for them to come from the US, now they are printed and shipped locally. So the author can receive them much more quickly and obviously much more cheaply coming in from the local marketplace.
And is it happening, sorry to cut across you, two questions about this. So firstly, it sounds like Amazon's migrating print services from CreateSpace to KDP, is that right?
Well, we're certainly looking to get to a position where Kindle Direct Publishing offers all of the services that CreateSpace offered, and I think we're pretty much there now. Just recently, you may have seen the announcement around expanded distribution, EDC, that is available for authors who are selling their books in the US marketplace to make those books available to other booksellers in the US marketplace, and that was recently added into Kindle Direct Publishing. So yes, we're getting to that point now where I think for many authors, Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, is the one-stop shop, and it has all the benefits that brings of consolidated reporting, being able to simplify the publishing process because you can go through it in a much more sort of streamlined process of producing an ebook and a print book through the same workflow. So it has many of those benefits, and as ever, as you mentioned earlier, we're always looking to make improvements and to hear what authors would like next. So I'm sure there'll be sort of new features down the line, but at this point we are getting to that stage, I think, where KDP is the sort of the option of choice for many authors.
Great. And the second question being those services that you mentioned in terms of delivery of print books and so on, that is applying across all the various stores for our Australian members, New Zealand members, South Africa, wherever they may be. Where are these local centres? Are they, how worldwide are they?
Yes, I mean, for most authors, certainly if you're an English speaking author and you're looking to publish into the English speaking marketplaces, then yes, publishing through KDP gives you all of those options. I mean, the key thing from an author perspective using KDP is you have the control. You choose which territories you publish your books into. But yes, as an author sitting in a living room in London, you can be making your books available to customers in the US, in Australia, in India, in many places. So exciting times, and I know for many authors that I speak to, actually the US is a huge marketplace for them. Even though they're UK based, it's a massive opportunity. So hopefully these services will help that.
That's fantastic. I think I confused you slightly there. I was talking about the proof delivery that you mentioned.
Sorry, yes.
Yes, but it's great that you mentioned that fact, because I think sometimes, particularly when it comes to print, because traditionally in the trade, print has been a local sort of, within a fixed territory, either the UK or the US or the Commonwealth or whatever. When it comes to print, we do tend to think perhaps a little bit too locally. So I'm very glad you brought that up. But yeah, I was specifically referring to those that proofing service. Is that available? Is it just the UK or is it everywhere?
No, where we operate KDP, yes, you can order your proof copies, yeah, where we have those print services. So yes, you may choose, and we can send your member or send you some links so that you can see some sort of demonstrations of how this works. But you can choose the Amazon website that you want to produce your print copy through, and so you may be sat in France and you may want to order that book through Amazon.fr, so you can do that and obviously benefit from that quicker turnaround. So yes, it is broadly available.
That's fantastic. And again, thank you for raising. We will have a small booklet, I think it will be by the time we're finished talking, in association with this presentation, which is going to have direct links to all the different things that we're going to be talking about, so that rather than us calling out loads of links through the presentation, which people would promptly then lose, we'll have a downloadable PDF, which people will be able to get hot links directly to whatever questions and concerns and issues they have. Because your help documentation, like yourselves, is expanding exponentially and is huge now. So just on the specific issues that we're talking about, it will be handy. And thank you very much for providing that as well. So yeah, so that's KDP print, which is really exciting. So what's number 2?
Yes, well, I guess one of the other big things that people have been really interested in is the Storyteller Contest. So I'm sure you're aware, as a participating judge, Orna, that we launched Storyteller last year in the UK. It's an English language writing contest, and so authors anywhere in the world who are publishing a new book in English can enter it into the Storyteller Contest in the UK. And this year we're in the middle of the entry window. The entry window is open until the 31st of August. So we've already had thousands of entries from authors all around the world. And I think, one of the things we hear from many authors is that sort of challenge of, I've got a book in me, I just need to sit down and write it. And having some deadlines like, well, here's a contest that you could enter and you could win a prize of £20,000 if you win the contest, serves to sort of focus people's minds. So hopefully over these summer months, many authors are thinking, okay, 31st of August is my deadline. I need to get my book published in that time, and we're very excited to see see what happens, see what the entries that we get in. Last year's winner, David Leadbeater, has had a fabulous year since winning. He's had his books published through Amazon Publishing and Translation. He's been at some great events, so hopefully this year's winner will have similar sort of success and things to look forward to.
And of course, David is not a new writer. This is open to people who have published, multiple times before, as well as beginners. And we had on the shortlist last year both of those things, which was very gratifying. Yes. And the other thing that we're telling people is, this is not just a popularity contest. There is a sort of a sense among people that perhaps it is just about, that they might be ruling themselves out because they don't write in the most popular genre, but actually. This is open to everybody, and it's a way of highlighting books in lots of different genres.
Yes, and that's it. The great thing about Storyteller is it's trying to be as open as possible. I mean, obviously, you need to create a contest which is manageable. But yes, you can be an established author with many, many books under your belt. This could be your first publication. You might be writing fiction, non-fiction. You may be writing a business book. There's all sorts of different ways in which you can captivate readers' attention and imagination, and that's really the key thing. And we will use sales are important, obviously, but there are other things that sort of indicate commercial viability and sort of real customer appeal, and we'll be looking at those to come up with a shortlist, and then obviously selecting a winner later in the year.
Fantastic. Okay, and one more of your big developments, and then we'll get on to posing some of the specific questions that our members have for you.
Well, I guess the final thing to really emphasize is just the growing opportunities for authors to be successful. And I think, like we talked about earlier, the fact that it's summer reading, the fact that Q4 Christmas is just around the corner. I think authors thinking about the various services that we offer through KDP Select, like the Countdown deals, and Kindle Unlimited, reaching a whole new group of readers through subscription, really just emphasizes the opportunity. And I guess sort of focusing on making those things as successful as we can has been one of the other things that we've focused on recently over months. So you'll have seen, some changes or clarifications around things like Kindle Unlimited and subscription, content guidelines, all of those. We've been spending a lot of time listening to authors, and Orna and the Alliance of Independent Authors have been great as giving us feedback from the author community that we can then sort of take away and listen to, and sort of see how we can improve our services. I think that will just continue, and it's almost sort of every day, but it's also not to be underestimated just how important those things are. And certainly for many authors that I speak to, Kindle Unlimited and getting access to those readers through subscription has been a great opportunity over the last sort of year or so in particular. I think at the events we've been running, things like the Amazon Academy events, many authors talking to me about just how important that is for them. And speaking of the academies, we have another one scheduled for later in this year. On the 11th of September, we're going to be in Wales. And I think the Alliance and other author organisations have been sort of spreading the word. Again, in our list of links that we will circulate, will be the link to the ticketing page for that. So it's a free event, but we just need people to sign up so that we know who's coming. And there you can hear about all sorts of author questions, from the creative side of the writing journey through to the practicalities of marketing and publishing and so on. So we've done a number of these over the course of the last year or so, and they've always been hugely successful. So looking forward to Wales as well.
Great. Okay, so you spoke about KU there, and let's talk a little bit more about KU, because there have been some problems over the last while. There's been, an escalation, I think, in terms of issues arising from various aspects of KU. And I should also say that KU is a KDP Select program, so it is available only to those authors who are signed up for KDP Select. So just before we get into looking at some of the things that have been happening there, can you just, for those who may not be familiar with KDP Select, just kind of run them through what happened, how that works?
Yes, of course. So KDP Select is an opt-in program. So as an author publishing through KDP, it's your choice whether you decide to go into KDP Select. But you opt in for a period of 90 days. And in return for making your book exclusive on Amazon for that 90-day period, KDP Select offers a whole sort of series of tools and options. So, for example, running Kindle Countdown deals, where as an author, you can choose to run a price promotion for a period of time. And on the website, it sort of calls out to readers and customers, this book is available at this special deal price for a specific period of time. And so it sort of encourages people to make that purchase decision. Your book is also added into Kindle Unlimited, which is our subscription program for readers. You pay £7.99 a month and have access to a whole range of titles that you can read as part of your subscription. And every book that is added into KDP Select is added into Kindle Unlimited. So for many authors, it's definitely something that is worth thinking about and experimenting with. And we hear from authors that will, test it by maybe putting in the first book in a series, maybe they put in the last book in a series, and they may put in one or two books, they may put in all their books. The great thing about it is the author has the control and decides what they want to do. And every 90 days, you have the option of reflecting on how it's working for you and choosing to either continue with that or not putting your book back into KDP Select and trying something else. So many authors that I speak to have said what a tremendous sort of benefit it's been, how it's sort of opened the door to a whole new income stream for them. They fortunately for those authors, there is a sort of auto renew option on the page. So you can just have your book sort of constantly rolling over its 90-day periods and staying in the program. And that seems to have been the way for many authors to go. I should point out that the books that are added into Kindle Unlimited through KDP Select, we pay for the pages read that readers are actually reading of that book, and so every month the author will see how many pages they've had read and how much they're getting paid for those pages read. So it's a real reflection of genuine reader engagement. We are literally paying for each page that a customer has read. So really hugely successful for many authors, and really sort of designed to reward those authors that are literally writing page turners. The more pages that you have read of a book, the more that you'll earn.
Yes, and it's fair to say I think that many indies are doing very, very well in this program. It's not for everybody, like every program, but there are a number of our members who really the vast majority of their income now comes, if not their income in total, from this program. So it is an extremely important program for a lot of indies. And there have been some hiccups over the past while that you and I have been discussing, and maybe we could talk a little bit about that now. Some authors were quite disturbed, and this goes back, I think, mainly to some months ago now, to find that their rank had been removed, either their page rank had been removed, or complete that they had been completely rank stripped themselves in their entirety. So can you talk to me a little bit about how that happened and what's been happening to improve the situation?
Yeah, I don't think that was a specifically tied to Kindle Unlimited. I think that was a general issue. We did have some specific technical problems earlier in the year where some books behaved in a way that I don't think many authors were expecting, and then we were we issued a sort of community post at that point just saying, yeah, there have been some technical issues, we've sorted those out now. And as far as I know, and again, it's always good to get feedback from you and your membership, that those problems haven't repeated. I think there are some general, as you say, there are general concerns or questions around Kindle Unlimited, because it has become such a big part of author income, and the way that readers engage with reading these days is, subscription programs are a part of digital media world over, be it music or video, and same for reading. And I think one of the key things I think we've really worked on over recent months is just trying to be a little bit clearer in terms of what it is that we're trying to do. We clearly, like any business, when you create something which is very successful, there are situations where there's a small percentage of people, in KU's term case, very small percentage of people that look to, shall we say, sort of not meet the rules in some ways and find ways of trying to cheat the system. And we've been working very hard to make sure that legitimate authors are not penalized from that behavior. And so we've been making some changes. We've been putting out some guidelines around things like bonus content and incentivizing people to read, and some of the other things that I think, as you say, you've mentioned before. And again, we can share some of the links to some of the content guidelines, some of the rules, and the sort of terms and conditions that apply to programs like this, because I think for any legitimate author, there's nothing to be worried about. As you say, it's not necessarily for everybody, but for the vast majority of the authors that I speak to, it's something that you can really get involved with and look to earn from. And as long as you're sort of abiding by the rules, then there's nothing to worry about. And any communication that we send out to an author where we've seen something that may not necessarily be something that the author has done, we've just noticed something on their account, they will receive an email, very transparent email with a very clear sort of opportunity to discuss that situation, and then the appropriate decisions are made down the line. So certainly for authors that I'm hearing from, there were some teething issues, there were various issues going on in previous months, but that has certainly settled down a lot more over recent weeks and months.
Okay, the reason I was thinking of it as being a KU issue, because I think there are two separate kind of areas where issues are arising, and one is in around box sets, anthologies, bonus content, what you're talking about. So as you say, there are people who are always trying to game the system. We call them scammers. So let's call them the scammers who know how to or work out ways in which to play a system, and they're not writers. They're not, their life's passion is not putting words out there. It's really about making money for them. And, their behavior has led legitimate authors who are just concerned about reaching their readers to be, as you say, they receive communications, and part of the concern that we hear about. And recently, for example, we had a member who is putting together anthologies, and they got an email from Amazon looking for the rights for each author in that anthology. Obviously, this is Amazon trying to ensure that those who own the copyright are the only people who are pulling that together. From the author's perspective, they got a letter out of the blue. they've been doing something for, X number of years, and suddenly they're asked for certain information very quickly. And communication is kind of fraught. It's not, it's not, they're feeling bad, they're feeling on the back foot, they're feeling like almost like they've done something wrong. So I think some of the things that are happening is because authors don't necessarily understand what you guys are trying to do, but some of it is also happening around communication and how that is kind of put across, and also perhaps how it's being approached, in the sense that this also sense was that if that information is required, why not put it on the dashboard? So it has to be put in input, when they're uploading the book, rather than them having to prove it afterwards, which gives them a huge headache with book launch going on and so on.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and I think, we, as you say, and as we talked about earlier, we're constantly listening for that kind of feedback. And I'm sure, whilst the vast majority of our messages from our customer service team and things like that are very clear and very straightforward, there will be situations where authors are concerned. And I think for many authors, the vast majority of authors who are, as you might say, sort of acting legitimately, have no intention of doing anything untoward. And I think, just the fact that you've received an email asking for certain information isn't an accusation. It isn't that we're saying you've done something wrong and please stop. It's often the question where we're just checking. We are just asking for that information, and in some instances, it may be a very sort of straightforward query that can get sort of wrapped up very, very quickly. But I think with any of those communications, it is a dialogue. And I think with every email that we send, there should be a sort of link through to it. Here's how you contact us. Here's how you get more information or query what we're asking for, and and there should therefore be an opportunity to have a discussion around those kind of things, because in those instances that you mentioned there, an author putting together an anthology of let's say short stories or whatever it might be, there could be all sorts of questions that come out of that the editing author, as it were, is acting in the best way possible, but maybe we've received a query from one of the participating authors. Maybe there's something that has come up in one of our systems that we need to clarify, and I think reaching out to the owner of that book, as it were, is a much better way of going about trying to establish what is the situation and then just moving on quickly. So yeah, I would hope that the messaging that we're giving out is clear, and is giving the authors the opportunity to respond in good time and sort of resolve the situation. And as you say, if there are better ways of getting to that information, such as including something in a dashboard or in the publishing process, that's really great feedback, and we can have a look at whether that is practical and where we could put that in. So yeah, I think that's a really useful insight.
Great. And the other area, of course, where this sort of thing happens as well is reviews. So an author wakes up one morning and finds suddenly they've lost, 10%, 20%, 50% or more, depending on how many reviews they have. And they don't know why. They write and ask why. They don't feel that they get an explanation that kind of fully makes sense to them. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on there?
Well, I think reviews generally, as with Kindle Direct Publishing terms and conditions, our reviews have very clear community guidelines that every reviewer has to follow. And like any business trying to deal with those kind of guidelines, we have to be very sort of careful around the content that gets put onto our website. But equally, we don't want to get drawn into a very detailed conversation about every single instance, because there are, again, a small number of people who are looking to abuse those guidelines or not meet those guidelines, and it wouldn't really be sort of scalable to start revealing every sort of single instance of what we've spotted and what we're trying to do about it. I think in many cases when it comes to reviews, as long as the author is following the community guidelines that are out there, and again we can make sure that link goes out there, they have nothing to worry about. And the fact that a review has come down isn't necessarily a reflection of anything that they've done, and it shouldn't be seen as any kind of criticism of what they're doing. It's simply us sort of managing our community in the way that our terms and conditions have been set out. I know, for example, there's all sorts of concerns, especially within the books world, about reviews and review copies and proof copies that are sent out to the community for, to solicit reviews. And we have very clear guidelines on that. It's perfectly all right, as long as the person receiving the book is not forced to submit a review, and as long as the author sending out the review copy isn't sort of trying to influence that review in any way. And I know there have been certain instances where authors have been very worried about sort of what they can say to their reviewers, their book bloggers, or whatever it might be about their reviews on Amazon or on any Amazon website. On any website. And I think as long as the author is sending out a review copy with a note that sort of says, here's my latest book, be great if you'd like to review it, entirely up to you, and that's it, then they have nothing to worry about. The concern is where they're sort of saying, please review my book, please leave a positive review. That's sort of starting to tread into some difficult areas where there is a risk that review will become coming down because you are trying to incentivize the reviewer in a way, and that certainly authors shouldn't be doing. But I think that the review guidelines are very clear, and any author following those should have no concerns.
So I think sometimes it's about authors getting mixed up with what you've just been talking about there. And if a review goes, they assume it's because Amazon thinks they've been doing something. And, you hear stories circulating where people say things like, they're listening in to our conversation on Facebook. They know who our Facebook friends are. They're, and they're taking down reviews accordingly. But from Amazon's perspective, it's as likely, and perhaps even more likely, that it is the person who is writing the review that has given concern as the author themselves. It may not be the author of the book at all. Is that correct?
Yeah, and there's all sorts of reasons. I mean, you can see from the community guidelines, the sort of rules that we set out for reviews. And yes, there are some there that are directed towards the content creator, the manufacturer, whatever it might be. Equally, there are many rules and guidelines for the people submitting the review. And as you say, it may be that a review has been removed for something that has nothing to do with the author at all. And as I say, we can't really get into the detail of that because there may be all sorts of investigations going on at our end. But the author shouldn't treat it as a criticism of them. And of course, if you find that a review has come down that you felt was entirely legitimate, you have the opportunity to drop us a note and just sort of say, please check. I'm sure this review is fine. I can't see what the issue is, and we will take a look at it. But again, we're not going to go into a huge amount of detail about it. But yes, the author shouldn't. Obviously, it's always disappointing to sort of lose a 5-star review if
you have no idea, Darren.
That's right.
Reviews are very precious, especially good ones.
Right. Yes, and we absolutely see the value of reviews on the website, and we know customers really value being able to read a sort of wide variety of opinions about particular books, and reviews are very important, and that's why we're very serious about how we treat the community on our website. And so each one of these is a very carefully calibrated decision. It's not just a sort of a random choice, and so the author should be reassured on that fact. There's lots of auditing going on, lots of checking going on, and it isn't necessarily a reflection of them personally.
And just back to KU again, and the what has been become known in the community as book stuffing, which is, again, they're not scammers in the sense that they are staying within the guidelines. They're not looking to circumvent the system, but they are certainly looking to max out on it, and they are pulling together content that has been used in many other anthologies. Say they're offering bonus content which isn't new, and it's all about kind of arranging and rearranging material and pulling in as much material as possible, stuffing the book full of stuff, and so on. And there is concern in the author community that people who are good at this, because of the way in which KU is paid, it's really, I think, is in some way connected to a payment issue, because the payout is an amount of money that is then divided among the pages read. If somebody is good at doing all of that, they are taking money away, it's felt within the community, from the legitimate author who is actually trying to make a living from their writing. And a sense that maybe that's not, and maybe it shouldn't be, that doesn't matter to Amazon. As long as it's within the rules, that's fine, and so be it.
Well, I mean, certainly there's been a lot of concern, as you say, around what's been going on with stuffing and any type of content that doesn't, that authors don't think is legitimate, as it were. Over the last few weeks, we've put out some updated guidelines around exactly those kind of things, and I'm sure you've seen them. Again, we can provide some links for those, where there are now limits around the amount of bonus content, as it were, that can go into a title. There are very clear guidelines around how authors let their readers know about the content of the book, within a table of contents or within a metadata that they supply for the title. So a lot of those things have been done in very clear response to community feedback we've been getting. From our perspective, Kindle Unlimited needs to work for authors and it needs to work for customers. And anything that is sort of getting in the way of that, or maybe there's a perception that's getting in the way of that, we take a very, very close look at. And so, that is something which has changed a lot recently. And I think, you'll have seen there's a lot of coverage out there about some of those recent developments. And I think, a lot of positive reaction to the steps that we're taking. So I think, as ever, we'll continue to monitor situations and continue to monitor the type of content that's getting in there, and how readers are consuming that product. I think one of the things we have to bear in mind is an author may not like a book that's doing particularly well in Kindle Unlimited, but if it meets the guidelines and readers love it, then that may be, it's a good thing. If it's being a legitimate title that readers really enjoy. It's not for us to determine what is a sort of quality book and whether readers should or shouldn't like it. But we have very clear content guidelines, and any title that's meeting those guidelines stands just as much chance as any other of succeeding in a program like Kindle Unlimited. And we will constantly keep that sort of under observation and update and change our guidelines as we need to, according to how the situation develops. But yeah, I think now there's some very clear content guidelines in place for Kindle Unlimited and bonus content stuffing that should definitely help with that situation.
Okay, so if an author is feeling unhappy about anything that's happening in their KDP world, what's the process they should follow?
Well, I guess it depends on the nature of the question, because I mean, inevitably there could be a multitude of different challenges for an author of different questions. I mean, we have a huge database of help content on the KDP page now, and a lot of that has changed recently. Actually, have been updated, and there's various sort of academies and university information and sort of jumpstart content, which gives you a really quick and digestible sort of way of sort of understanding more about the processes. So I'd say that's a good starting point. The help content should help resolve many different questions. There's a very vibrant community, and I know ALLi as well has a sort of very vibrant author community who are helping each other out, where you can get advice and feedback about particular situations that you find. And then there are plenty of sort of contact us options as well, in terms of getting directly in touch with the team of people who help run the Kindle direct publishing business. And there are a number of escalation points. Again, we can give you some make sure it's really clear email addresses to use to sort of flag maybe concerns around some content that an author has found in Kindle Unlimited, and to bring that to our attention. And as ever, relationships like ours with ALLi are hugely important as ways for us to hear more about what authors are thinking and what's working well. It's not always concerns. It may be things that we've done something which is really positive, and authors would like to see more of it. And channeling your membership feedback through you in particular, Orna, to us has been hugely useful. So I think there's a number of different ways in which authors can use those routes to find out more, to resolve their concerns, and then to flag things to our attention.
Great. And so business to business, kind of having that conversation, if you're unhappy, is the place to start anyway, with Contact Us. And
yes.
Yeah,
I think if an author wants to engage with us directly, I think that's definitely the key way to go. But to be honest, I mean, I've been working in KDP for a number of years now, and I've been amazed, and it's always been so great to see just how actually helpful the community is within itself. And I know ALLi members in particular, are great at helping each other out. And even though writing can feel like a very solitary profession, reaching out to fellow authors, reaching out to the community is often a very quick and easy way of reassuring yourself on a particular point. And I think that's not to be underestimated either.
Absolutely. I always say writing went from being the most lonely job in the world to being the most sociable job in the world. So thank you very much, Darren. Always a pleasure to connect. And I think that's a very clarifying conversation, and I hope it will be very helpful to our members and followers. And we will include the PDF, which should be down below now by the time people are listening to it. And yes, so thank you for your time today, and good luck with the next developments and the next rollouts.
Thank you very much. It's great to speak to you, Orna.
Take care. Bye-bye.